All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. A little bit of came in hot today. Came in hot. Usually I'm here like half an hour early, but today we were very Miami today for this episode 3. I'm starting it. I'm making it official. I always look at John and I talk to John throughout the show, but he likes to be behind the curtain. But I can pull him back.
It's okay. John's here. He's cool.
That's our guest today, Grant Stern. We'll intro him in a little bit, but here we are for episode 3 of My Little Town, recording live here from Joel Radio over in Allapattah, west of Wynwood. I'm Yuval Ophir with Yo Miami. Come check out Yo Space in Little Haiti if you're going to be around this Bay Area. And yeah, welcome to the show. I have to give a quick shout out. We got our 4-pack set up from Jay Wakefield, so I'm gonna shout out Jay Wakefield for being the last and for now at least only independently owned craft brewery in Wynwood.
Wow, how'd that happen? I thought there was 100 of those.
No, there are in Miami, but not in Wynwood anymore. There were some.
There was an explosion there for a little while.
But yeah, now it's we got Anheuser-Busch, actually on two sides Anheuser-Busch. We got Sam Adams, which respect, they're still craft, they're the granddaddy of craft, but that's actually what we're here to talk to you about today is development and the rapidly changing landscape of Miami. Let's get a little
yeah, let's get started.
Don't pop it because it was on the floor on the car. No,
no, I'll get there. Okay, there we go.
I don't want.
It's after 5 o'clock. This is Yo's show, so when in Rome.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Oh, there we go. That's the
nice.
beer, guys. That's the beer.
That is nice. What is Brute Cart?
Yeah, now rosé is hot now with the
oh, yeah, interesting.
It's the rosé style beer.
Oh wow, you know this reminds me of yeah, like kind of like an English style bitter.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, like maybe a little bit more, almost like dryness or bitterness from the like kind of the grape leaves.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's what Johnson put. Interesting stuff. We had him on here last show, but let's dive in. So I've known you. I don't remember how I met you, but I know you as I hope you don't take this at all in a derogatory sense and only in the positive way that I mean it, but like the bulldog of bulldog watchdog of Miami.
Oh yeah, that's
of Miami. We'll just leave it at that. I was like trying to think
something like that. I keep busy. If you've only seen the Only in Miami stuff, like it's a passion. It's not something that I'm like, getting rich on. I'm not.
Oh man, you should try it. We're rolling in the bucks, John, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It worked. You got him out of the fourth wall. Congratulations.
See?
No, I'm not moving to that big $1.5 million house in the South Grove. People have asked me to run, and I've told them that you're not a very good watchdog from inside the doghouse.
True. And I always say, it's the people who need to be in those jobs are always the ones who don't want it because they're busy actually doing real things in the real world.
Yeah, I do that too, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
You do what too?
Yeah, well, I still work. I still have a day job.
Right, aside from the radio, but I thought you were like,
I'm
secretly the commissioner.
Yeah, but I still run a company, and that's what, that's what I do. I still have the mortgage company, and we're still active, and it's like, so I'm juggling that, and baby, and media stuff.
We're in that same boat now?
Yeah, we're neighbors, too, so that's
neighbors, a few months apart?
Yeah, dude, you went first. You went down for the count first, so you explored.
Took the dive, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you push, or sometimes you walk off, sometimes you jump off together. It's an adventure.
Class of 2036, right? So
is that you did the math? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about high school and college and
there is math in my debates.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. That does make sense, but yeah, that's why I moved away from the traditional business world and to like all this art stuff, which you still got to apply some of that too, but less math.
Oh, there's plenty of math in art, man.
Right, if you're doing the art.
Yeah, well, you got those guys are very, very focused on numbers at a certain point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It depends on the artist.
True.
But so I also know you obviously, given that I've worked and have lived in Wynwood, since 2009 roughly. So the No Walmart in Midtown campaign
Yeah, it's a hashtag.
Okay.
It's a petition.
Like, is it even real today if it's not a hashtag?
Yeah, right. I mean, I made it a real hashtag, 6.5 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Did they call them pounds then?
No.
Or they were already hashtag?
Never, ever.
No.
Sorry. I had to say it exactly like that. No, it's, what happened with that is a funny story, actually. If you read my work, if you follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter at Grant Stern, or you can find me on Facebook also, same stuff. But if you read my work, I do write actually nationally and even international. I do a lot of international affairs stories, but I really cherish the Miami stuff.
Right.
And one of the stories that you kind of write is like, what hasn't been published? Like, what happened that nobody is, the gatekeepers have decided must be kept silent. Yeah. Right?
The gatekeeper is important to mention, but we'll dive into that later.
Right. So that's an important element of journalism, uncovering what's being suppressed. And the entire Walmart case was just all about that. We knew that they weren't doing things the right way, and we could point it out 50 which ways. But every time they wanted something, they just got it. It was nuts. It's not the way. What's the point of making a city code?
Right.
You're talking about hiring lawyers, holding meetings, spending tax dollars. You have commissioners, attorneys, clerks, staffers, video guys.
You just answered your own question. What's the point of having a city code is to give a lot of people jobs?
Right. Well, it's like, what's the point of having all of that, right? If you're going to make all of that, and then when somebody shows up, you're going to rip it up, throw it in the garbage can, and then light the garbage can on fire, and just be like, look, this smoke is here to keep you from knowing what's going on inside that can.
Right. But it's there. Don't worry. Trust us. The can's there, and when you
don't
have
worry,
garbage,
it's burning just
sure
fine. And that's how you turn a city into a dumpster fire. And I wish that we could work on things faster, because I'm not like Daddy Warbucks here. I don't have a father to give me $400 million to get involved
Trump, right?
in things.
I'm like, is
right.
that someone local or?
No, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody local, but it's one of these deals. Like, I rely on attorneys who are working on contingent fee. They get paid at the very end, only if we win. So we have to be right about everything. Otherwise, SOL. And I mean, it's a long fight, but it's all about just revealing the stuff that they do not want revealed.
Right. And so just to clarify or give a little bit of context for, there are some listeners who may not be familiar with the whole story, basically, how many years ago now?
Well, it started in 2012, and what actually in 11, what happened is DDR leaked it to the press. The mall company that owns Midtown, okay? Like, they leaked it because, like, they own 300 malls all over the country, and Walmart is in those 300 malls.
Right.
So Walmart is like the 800-pound gorilla, and they're like the 80-pound gorilla.
Right. That's holding the chain.
Like at the end of the leash.
Right.
And so Walmart basically went in and said, you're giving this to us. And DDR said, okay, that's fine. But then they kind of let everybody know it was about to happen.
Right.
So like that was like November of 2011.
All right.
And I was not happy. And I
at
wrote.
At the time you were already in this area.
In the neighborhood, yeah. I moved into the neighborhood beginning in 2001.
Right.
But like, I wrote an op editorial, and I submitted it to somebody at the Miami Herald, a neighborhood op-ed,
Right.
And
like letter to the editor.
Yeah, kind of, but it was like a neighbor's section.
Right.
It was like a neighborhood section that was operating independently, so they would publish like guest stuff, but everything they did got carried by the Herald, and they accepted it and said, look, we're actually waiting to find out if we're going to get an advertisement from Midtown Mall. So we'll let you know. This was the guy that they contracted it. They contracted out the local section to one guy.
Right.
And I was like stunned. I'm like, really? I have to wait on that?
They're like, we like it. We'll run it if the boss says it's okay. If we're not getting that check.
If we don't get an advertisement from the outside. And I'm like, wow, that seems pretty odd. And finally, they did not get their advertisement.
Right.
And I had told them, I said, look, just run it, and then they have to buy an ad,
right?
So they can put
To
their
counteract,
stuff
right.
next to mine. There you go. But finally they said, okay, these people aren't playing ball with us either. I'm like, okay, great, and then they ran it, and the rest is kind of history.
Right.
I ran it, and a bunch of my friends in the area said, hey, why don't you start a petition? And like things really escalated from there very, very quickly. I mean, I did the petition, and then it started to get picked up by the media, and then like I even got invited on Fox and Friends on a Saturday morning to debate that with former City of Miami city manager Frank Rollison, who had run for District 2 Commission, like not so long before that, which is like where Ken Russell.
Yeah.
That's the seat Ken Russell's going to lose.
Right. Oh, really?
Yeah.
In November.
Next November. Unfortunately, he's lucky that nobody's voting right now, because I don't know if you've seen it. He's what you call an AstroTurf liberal. I mean,
on the surface.
Well, there's a whole incident unfolding in the city of Miami. You didn't hear about this?
No. I mean, maybe if you started it, I'll be like, oh, that.
Well,
but I haven't heard anything with Russell.
Have you ever thought that the grass is greener on the other side?
Never.
Well, in Brickell it is, because it's fake.
Right. Okay.
No. The city signed a contract to rip all the grass out of the soils in Brickell and turn it all into concrete.
For some reason, I thought that was in the Grove or something, like in the Gables.
No, it's in Brickell. I mean, it's insane. That area already black screen base, and now they're like, let's rip out every strip of green that there is.
Because it's easier to maintain.
Because somebody's friends with somebody, and they have a product, and it's easier to maintain, and blah, blah, blah.
That was the sales pitch from the person
them, right.
who knows somebody.
Yeah, except, everybody who walks their dog is like, yeah, it's easy.
Right.
But anyway, so like, that's a whole to-do over there in City Hall. That's not the only one, but I digress. We were talking about the Walmart stuff, right?
Yeah.
The guy that was there before Ken actually did know what he was doing, unlike Ken.
We're not talking about Sarnoff.
Yeah, no, he knew what he was doing, but
right.
he was
what he wanted to do was.
but it took him years to become what Ken has become in just a few years.
Okay.
Except Ken doesn't have the attorney skills,
Right.
Like Mark was too smart for our own good,
Okay.
and so then he started doing things that were not such a good idea, and the rest is history. I mean, he got termed out. Nobody wanted to elect his wife to do his bidding.
Right. That's like the stuff with with every political dynasty in Miami at some point.
Well, the Regalatos are different, and they're all Republicans. I've talked to them extensively. Raquel, I thought, could have run a better campaign.
I'm not comparing her to Sarnoff's
but
wife.
she knows what she's talking about.
Right. I'm just saying in the sense that it's a family business, and eventually everyone gets a turn, kind of thing. Like,
well, if you want to talk about the family business, let's talk about the Diaz-Balart family.
Yes,
how's that sound?
Who you wrote about? So we'll tie a knot in Walmart to basically
we'll tie a knot
say
in
that
Walmart. There's so much of it. I could talk for 5 hours about Walmart.
You've been a thorn in their side for going on 7 years now. There is still not a Walmart there, so obviously you're having some effect on that.
Let me leave you with a parting thought on Walmart.
Yes.
Okay, we just wrenched 50,000 emails across the last 8-9 years from the city of Miami out of their grimy little paws and into our hands through a lawsuit that is still going on. And if you're enterprising and you want to find out more about it, hop into the Miami-Dade County Clerk court dockets, look up my name. It'll come up right there at the top, Stern versus Miami. Do it. Go there and do it, and you will find the complaint, which is only 38 pages long, and it tells the entire story.
Okay.
But the 50,000 emails, let me just say, there is a smoking gun.
Okay.
Deal?
Deal. So we'll leave it at to be continued with Walmart.
To be continued with Walmart.
Now let's talk about someone that you've written about recently, Diaz-Balart.
You mean Congressman Dupesbanks?
I guess so.
Very clever, right?
I can't keep up with all the.
I did not. I didn't write the headline because that's not how it works when you have an edited journal.
Right.
Sometimes I'm writing an edited journal. Sometimes I'm the editor and writer.
Right.
But in that case, I went to David K. Johnson. He is a incredible journalist, former New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and he thought the story was phenomenal. And he came up with that great title because, Diaz-Balart, Dupes Banks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Dupes Banks. I have to think about what the subject of the article was too.
Now you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty actually straightforward. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy straightforward. First of all, like Channel 4 came out with an amazing report about the Diaz-Balart family and all this foreign lobbying.
Mm.
But my story is much more knowable. It's pretty straightforward. He took out a primary residence loan up in Washington, D.C. On a home that wasn't his primary residence.
Right, because he already had declared one.
Well, yeah, he's even come out and said it. Hey, I lived here in Miami this whole time.
Right.
My story never actually disputed that.
Right.
They voted here. They were living here. They had to. But the thing is that they did sign a document that is a primary residence loan. I mean,
right.
it's...
And so I'm assuming there's some kind of restrictions or rules in terms of you can't have a primary residence in multiple states.
Yeah, it's called the Federal Criminal Code. And actually, one of Debbie Wasserman Schultz's staffers did the same thing, and it became a giant, months-long conspiracy, a true fever swamp.
Okay.
And then they convicted him of making a false statement on a credit application.
Right.
And that just happened in July. He pled guilty to falsifying the occupancy statement in the mortgage application, which this congressman, he had to have done. You don't get these things by accident. They're very standard.
Right.
You either declare it as a rental property, which means you have to sign a piece of paper that says if I don't pay the loan, the bank can come in and collect the rent directly. Okay. You say it's a second home. You have to file a second home declaration. That's what the congressman did in 2004 when he bought the property. But this didn't have any of those, and that means it's a primary residence. And what he's been doing is he's been going around disingenuously pretending that the Congressional Federal Credit Union is his lender. But, if you look at the records, they are not the lender. They may have helped him get the loan. They've arranged it.
Right.
And by the way, they were the ones who arranged the loan for Debbie Wasserman Schultz's staffer who got,
so there's a common
convicted.
Denominator.
There's a common denominator here that's in the story. And if you want another common denominator, I'll leave you with this. What did you think about the Paul Manafort trial? Did you think that they came to the right decision? Was it questionable?
Frankly, I don't follow national politics more than the scrolling by the headlines on Facebook, precisely because our local politics keeps me busy
keeps
enough.
You busy.
Right.
So let's just say
that's why I bring you here to educate me.
Here I am. Here I am. So he was only convicted on one of the mortgage fraud counts because one very highly partisan person thought he was only guilty of 8 out of 18 counts.
Okay. Right.
I mean,
it's less than half.
Hey,
a little less.
There you go. He got all the benefit of the doubt there.
Right.
He pled guilty to everything eventually, but Paul Manafort was convicted at jury trial by a jury of, Virginia residents, including one person who was a diehard skeptic, Trump holdout, would not vote against him on 10 counts no matter what.
Mm.
And the one mortgage fraud count they convicted him of, primary residence fraud.
Oh.
It's a big deal. It's the difference between getting a loan and not getting a loan, and that's why they go after it. I mean, it's an offense. It's federal.
Right.
The maximum sentence is 30 years. They'll probably get probation.
Right. Yeah. You don't think that these people are going away for?
Well, he doesn't. He's they make it 30 years because if you're like a fraudster, if you're doing
right.
if you did like 50 of these, then they it would be a lot more. But yeah, it's just it's upsetting to see. I mean, he's out there lining up a storm about it now. He's saying, the FHA says you could have 2 primary residences. I'm like, no, it does not.
Right. It's like just blatantly like sticking to guns that are empty, basically.
It would be more like, let's say you had a rental car, right? And I'm Hertz, and I say, well, you can only have one rental car at a time, just to protect the fleet, right?
Right. Yeah. So you're not taking.
So that you don't, because what would happen if you had people with one car taking out 20 cars? You could have fraud.
Right, and then by the time you realize that 20 cars are gone already, and they did it.
Right. I mean, they're chopped up, sold off, goodbye. So, there's certain safeguards that places make, and this is what the FHA does.
Right.
He didn't take out any FHA loans in the first place, so it's not relevant. It's kind of like, it's like saying instead of renting a car, you rented a scooter. Those little dangerous things that that Francis and Ken Russell just jammed through. The zipper things that go 20 miles per hour on the sidewalk with no helmets. Yeah, those are great. Kind of like the movie Concussion, but except that it's going to go wrong in the beginning. So anyways, FHA is not important to this anyway, but what they mean is if you have a hardship, then you can get a second car at the same time, but only after you've used up the first car.
Right.
You have to wait 12 months, and if your family broke up, you could get a second FHA primary residence loan. None of these things apply to this guy.
Right.
And he's out there pretending, and, I'm sorry to say, but nobody ever looked into him before.
Right.
It is what it is. I mean, there's so many other problems in this country. I mean, you just figure that somebody's been a politician for 30 years, their entire adult life, would have some clue that people will look at this stuff. I know people have looked at my documents in the past.
Right.
They've told me.
Right.
They have.
That's the thing for people.
Reference,
don't tell him.
Walmart.
Right.
Oh, dude, are you kidding me? Walmart showed up at a meeting, and they said, yeah, they're like, they gave me the meet the fuckers eyes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're watching you.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I mean, I've not to that extent, but that I do want to use that as a kind of a segue because we've talked about a few different examples that illustrate the phenomena that I kind of want to explore with you, which is, land of the free, home of the brave, capitalism is king. And,
no, this is the land of the free, home of the Whopper.
Okay.
This is Miami, after all. I'm from here.
Well, R.I.P. because they're not here anymore. But
no, the Whopper is still here.
Well, they moved from the building though by the airport, right?
Oh, well, yeah, like to the Gables or something, right?
I thought they moved the...
I'm pretty sure, I mean,
But the point being that I wanted to dig a little bit into this phenomena of SAPs.
Oh,
that ties in a little bit. That ties a little bit into Midtown. It ties in very much to something that I'm dealing with personally now in Little Haiti with Magic City, East Side Ridge, there's the Legion Park. There's basically anywhere from 4 to 5 SAPs within an area that's maybe 20 to 40 blocks.
So you want to talk about the details of Miami zoning law and policy?
I want to talk about how certain people or certain organizations are able to navigate a system that is supposed to democratize, almost by the definition of its name, democratize these processes of people to own land, to operate businesses, to do all these things, and how there are very clear hurdles and bypasses in place that only money or the right connections really gets you, enables you to navigate in a way that actually makes sense and is efficient and not completely backwards and ridiculous.
In other words, the city of Miami is hopelessly corrupt.
Well, I think, honestly, yes. I mean, the simple answer to that is yes, but I don't think it's...
you answered my statement with a statement. Oh, by the way, before we go into the weeds of zoning, honey, you can turn off the radio now. Okay, look, let me...
Honey, you better keep listening till the very end of this show.
I'm just talking to my wife. My wife personally, she's listening out there. Now she can... Yeah. So, this is how it is. The city of Miami has lots of wonderful things on paper. As I mentioned earlier, that if you're the normal person, they are like the chains, the bonds, the things that you must abide for your entire life. And you are at the mercy of a bunch of unelected folks who get to make some decisions. A lot of them that I've met are very nice, and they're cordial, and they will work with you. And if you do know the law, they will give you a public record, but only if you know the law. And by the way, if you're listening... check out the Sunshine Manual, the Government and the Sunshine Manual. Just Google it now. Oh, I can see the spike. I'm looking at the meter now. Government and the Sunshine Manual in Florida is the Attorney General's book on how to get records out of cities. Okay? And there's a project that I've started. We haven't gotten to latent phase yet, but the filing is done. Mm-hmm. It's called Sojourn USA, American Society for Journalism. There's a lot of stuff here. Hold on.
Yeah.
I loaded up.
Journalism,
OpenGov, rights, and news gathering. Does that
okay.
It rolls off the tongue, right?
I don't know, rolls off the tongue, but I get the picture.
Sojourn USA.
Okay.
And the idea of it is to be like a miniature ACLU, but just for more aimed at transparency mm-hmm. and civil rights as well.
Specifically to local government or across the board?
We're going to do Florida for now. Okay. We'll see how it goes, but it's one of these things. In Florida, there's a tough public records law. Mm-hmm. If you know how to navigate it, you can get things. But right. That's really, that's the start of your problem. Like, you're like, oh, the SAP, it's supposed to democratize things.
No,
why
I'm not
doesn't
saying
it work?
The SAP is supposed to democratize. I'm saying the government is supposed to democratize things in the sense that having a process for filing for a business license or for change of use or for all that is supposed to be so that everyone is
it's
on
like
the same plane.
If your name is Yo or your name is Grant, you go pay your fees, you jump through your hoops, you have to kowtow to these the mandarins, and if you're lucky, they'll give you what you ask for. If you're lucky, right? But if you're these other folks, I mean, there is rampant corruption. The lawsuit that I'm pursuing against Walmart, or the Walmart project, it's really not against the project. It is against the city. It involves the project.
Right.
But what happened is the group of neighbors that, it was like myself and a group of neighbors, we were all fighting together, right? Mm-hmm. On the lawsuit itself, I was not a plaintiff. I went all the way up to the city commission and appealed it to them. And then the neighbors took over from there. I helped out, substantially, like pretty much a lot.
Right.
And the first time around, we beat the city in court, right? We got them to declare, this is a gross injustice.
Right.
That's a big deal. Okay, yeah. They reversed the decision.
Yeah.
And the city responded by railroading us and giving us a unfair hearing.
It's like they go, take your victory, but now...
Yeah, they're like, oh, congratulations, you beat us in court, and now we are going to railroad you like you have never felt it before. Mm-hmm. That was actually the New Times called me up and said, what's going on? I said, this is what a railroad looks like.
Right.
And that's for starters. I mean, anything to do with the city, if they want to railroad you, they're not shy. They know that it's difficult to pursue this stuff. I don't have unlimited resources.
And that's the thing, is that the people that you're going up against that now, I'm, dealing with, I don't know if I use the language going up against, but trying to manage or trying to minimize the negative impacts of, they have teams of, land use attorneys, of every different kind of attorney that you want, that's, billing $400 to $500 an hour, and that goes to the city
a
for
lot
them.
More than that, actually.
Right, depending on the, I guess.
A lot more, probably.
Walmart,
a lot.
Walmart.
I mean, Walmart came at us with Genevieve Jobloff. They came at us with Lideker Diaz. These are big law firms. They hired Ackerman Centerfit as well, via DDR. That was like 4 law firms, plus the city of Miami has 28 attorneys in their law firm.
Right.
Which you pay to screw you over. That's how it works here around here.
Right.
And they came at us real hard, and they've hired the former mayor who wrote Miami 21, who enacted the Midtown regulations. They brought the former planning director who did the same. Okay. And those people showed up, and they lied their asses off.
Right. I
mean, the planning director basically said that 4 + 1 = 3. Mm. The former planning director, and the current one, of course. I mean, his palms are so greasy, I'm surprised he can open doorknobs. Both the city attorney and the planning director in the city of Miami are basically they're the head of a racket.
Well, what's interesting is this was like, I don't know, a few years ago, a handful of years ago, I actually looked up the definition of, it was either organized crime or mafia or whatever, on the federal government website. Mm-hmm. And if you
mean like you looked up Trump?
No, but ironically...
You might as well have.
Right, but if you look up that definition on the federal government website, they're basically describing government. It's just non-sanctioned government.
Kinda, yeah, kind of. I mean... It's different.
Go look up the definition so that you
listen.
No, not you. I'm saying so that you get the.
The listeners, yeah. Go. No. I'm actually, I've written a lot of stories about racketeering up in New York mostly, And well, you know, one of Donald Trump's closest associates is a man named Felix Sater, and a fellow who is from South Florida. His name is Jody Chris. He sued Felix Sater as an insider, claiming that Sater had run a RICO operation in the New York hotel called that formerly known as Trump Soho, which Donald Trump put his name on and owned 18%.
Right.
And a funny thing happened. I wrote several stories on it. I started last May, like in May of 2017, with like a 5,000 word deep dive, presenting things that nobody else had seen really. And then, you know, I started getting sources, and that's kind of how it happens. Like you're in journalism, if you write a really, really great story, sometimes people who know things seek you out and stuff, and then you write an even better story, right? And one of them had these leaked emails, which showed that this fellow Sater was conducting a fraud scam, and it all happened after his history as a felon was revealed, right?
Right. Yeah, of course. It's only once the smoke comes out that then people really start doing the deep digging, and then.
Well, what had happened is the guy that went down with him and got the fall got out of jail.
Right.
And he said, "Hey, this guy was convicted with me. He ratted on me."
Right.
And
that's why he's on it.
And guess what? Donald Trump covered up that guy's scheme. They all met about it.
Right.
Okay, we have the emails. This is last August that I published.
Yeah.
We found the emails saying that Donald Trump and his whole family had gone and met with Felix Sater, this mobster,
right,
and a violent mobster, by the way. I mean, scary stuff that he did in the 90s.
Yeah.
But, you know, they all met to discuss how to handle it, and he said in the emails that that Trump's idea for handling his problem where he couldn't stay in the project was just to take his shares away.
Right.
He didn't want that to happen. So he actually described like this is something Forbes got. He described a 7-point plan, how we're going to hide my ownership in this as a twice convicted felon.
Right.
And, yeah, that could still be charged.
Right.
Today.
So
I wrote this huge story about that, and then 6 months later, a judge unsealed something, and I wrote a big, like a really like rock the walls kind of story. Because I'm going to tell you a secret about journalism. If you write about things that are not known, that's news.
Nowadays everything is rehashing the same thing.
Right, you see a lot of rehashing, and I mean that's the thing. It's tough to break a brand new story every day because it takes time and research and energy, and you might be like me. You might have other duties to attend to, but you know, you have to know what you're looking at, and it's tough. And understanding racketeering is like,
right.
It's above everybody's head, dude. It's like that's why it's racketeering.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, that's why they call them wise guys. You know, like
it's not right.
Yeah, they're like criminal masterminds. And I like it, but anyway, so like I write this story this February, right?
Right.
And then a week later, I went on a vacation with my wife. You know, it was our you know, we had like one last hurrah, going to Cancun. After the baby, one last fun trip out of town, like because you know she had work benefits and whatever, blah blah blah, and so we go out there and it's like Saturday, like President's Day weekend. We're hanging out, relaxing, and you know I'm not looking at the computer all the time, but I just I saw the tablet, and I just saw an email, and I said, "Whoa, like this says it's an email about that story."
Right.
I open the email, and it's from his mob lawyer.
Trump's mob lawyer.
No, his mobster's mob lawyer.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, what is this? And I read the email. Oh, you did this wrong. This is this. That's that.
Right.
Blah blah blah. Like it's this long email.
You didn't understand. Let me explain it to you.
Kinda. And then
I got that recently from a local.
Then he said, if you don't change your story, we will taking action. I'm not kidding. Right. I was like, and I looked at the time, and I'm like,
it said dictated but not read.
Right.
I always wanted to use that.
So I looked at the time, and it was like 6 o'clock on a Saturday night on President's Day weekend, and they're busy emailing me, his attorney.
Right.
Oh my gosh, they must have been really freaked out.
Right.
They settled the case like the next week.
Right.
No, like before the documents got released. Like I just wrote a story saying, hey, the documents are going to get released. And they said, no, you're wrong, this, that, the other.
Right.
And then when finally the documents did get released, his email actually proved the point of my story.
Right.
Because we live in a society, and this is scary. This is how you have to think now if you want to. This is Orwellian.
Right.
This is how you have to think if you want to break through the red tape tangles at the city of Miami or anywhere else. The judge issued an order and said, I'm going to unseal everything except these documents that I don't want you to see.
Right.
But the subject of those documents were also already public. And courts are not supposed to try and seal things that are already public.
Right.
In this country, we have this thing called the First Amendment, you may have heard of. The free speech right.
Right.
And it applies to courts making their proceedings very secret. The whole point of court is that it's supposed to be in public, right?
Right.
Well, they gave me highlights, like everything they tried to seal was redacted. You see one of those documents and everything's blacked out.
Yeah.
So I went to the open court docket and got the original record, and I got the blacked out one, and put them side by side, and said, well, the court basically confirmed everything in these, everything that they said, we're redacting this because it's authentic.
Right.
Well, I've got the unredacted copy, so it's confirmed, and that was the story.
Right.
So this guy actually threatened me, but he confirmed my story by threatening me. Is that funny or what?
I don't mean, I guess funny. I guess that's the word for it.
Yeah.
Scary,
funny, scary, crazy. But that's the level of complexity that I'm writing at. I'm writing about all sorts of crazy stuff. When it comes to these SAPs, though, back to the original topic. The city of Miami.
So I want to backpedal. So SAPs, from my understanding, and this is
special area plans in the city of Miami.
Special area plans. So they came about only 3 years ago.
No, they've just come in vogue recently.
Okay, so they've been around for a while, but they've only started getting used.
Well, you need to have 9 acres, so it's not easy to get 9 acres all the time.
It's relative. Not easy in the sense of if you have enough money, it's not hard to assemble the 9 acres.
Oh yeah, I guess so. It's all relative, but it's not actually that easy. Look at the Beckham people. They just won their lawsuit to buy the last piece of property in Overtown, and that took them a couple of years.
Right.
And they have the money. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of agreements and the hoops you have to jump through to get down the road.
And that's the main issue. That's the crux of what I wanted to talk about. Is the point of SAPs was, from my understanding, to give the
bigger projects flexibility.
Well, to give bigger projects flexibility in exchange or in return or to a certain degree
for a guaranteed public hearing and community input.
Exactly. So to come up with some kind of, it's basically to give the community that these developments are happening in at least some ability to have their voice heard and to have some kind of input in what is going to basically change their entire community for the long term.
Right, that's the idea, and this is the city of Miami. So the reality is far, far different. It all begins, like I said, with them hiding all the records. If you want to get any leverage in the process, you start requesting the records. It creates a legal obligation. The city is required to give you those records. It's not optional. It is required. That is very important, okay? Anytime that they don't give you the record, you can go to court and apply to have the record ordered to you.
But see, that's my point. See, we've used a lot of political jargon and a lot of acronyms.
So let me boil it down. SAPs stink because the city of Miami government doesn't want to do anything for people. They want money. And there are people there that behave in a way that they're only behaving in that way to take extra money on the side somehow. I'm sorry. The Miami Herald. They covered the Walmart stuff. It began with that, just an op-ed in the Herald, really.
Right.
And then they covered it, and they made a ridiculous mistake. I still don't understand why they haven't retracted that story and issued an apology. They wrote a story saying that 180 degrees of the court order is what happened, the one that we won.
Right.
And that's nuts when you're working against that kind of, nobody's saying what's going on.
Right.
Right? But in an SAP, if every single thing got reported on the side of the people, then every single thing would get fixed. That's really what it boils down to.
That's the point I was driving at, is I feel like, and I'm dealing right now with issues, and you probably can relate, I'm sure, like, I'm dealing with issues on the board, like, of the condo that I live in the sense of, like,
Sure.
you know, conflict of interest, and there was a coup.
Right. In the
whatever.
city of Miami, there are no conflicts of interest because you have people that are literally, like, I'm telling you right now, my theory is that they're just, you know, they're having relatives take the cash.
Maybe, but the point being that your everyday, what I learned I live in a condo that has ballpark 650 apartments.
Big condo.
Big building. There's a lot of people. There's definitely a lot of foreign, I'm sure, investors, whatever. There's
regret to inform you, 100 to 200 units is the sweet spot for any apartment building. But I digress.
Right. The point being that what I learned is that people don't care until it affects them negatively, and until they care, they don't really pay attention to what's happening.
That's a big part of what they're counting on in the SAP process.
Exactly.
But I mean, the real bottom line is there's nothing you can hold them to except the Sunshine Law. I'm going to tell you right now, that is what I've learned from dealing with the city. There's no law in the state but the Sunshine Law. It's like the only hammer that a citizen really has is the power of discovery. It's actually, I mean, it's a great right. It's one of the rights. This doesn't exist in every state, by the way.
Okay.
Like in New York.
So the Sunshine Law is basically the ability for citizens to request public records of things.
And the ability to attend meetings in person. The Sunshine Law is two parts. It's the open meetings and open records laws.
Okay.
Sections 286 and 119 of the Florida statutes. But, like, for example, in New York, right, their open records law is called FOIL, the Freedom of Information Law. Okay, all it does is foil anybody from finding anything out.
I was waiting for the pun there.
You knew it had to be coming. But they take foiling people seriously. I mean, I have a friend who is part of the Occupy movement. He lives up in New York City, Keegan Steffen. He is a legit guy. He decided to go to law school. I think he's probably graduating. I guess he's probably graduating next year. But, like, he was working for a civil rights law firm. Like, this guy was really in it. And he was out there foiling the police because they were using, like, sound cannons in New York City, which is scary things, like, you know, using sound waves to cause hearing loss.
It's the Minority Report thing.
Yeah.
Like, when you were saying Orwellian, that's what I wanted to say, is I feel like humanity as a species is kind of creating its own self-fulfilling prophecy through, like, Hollywood and the media, because I'm convicted in a way where I'm not wearing an aluminum foil hat or whatever, but, like, I don't think it wouldn't surprise me if we ended up acting out The Matrix, like the movie.
Oh, I'm covering my eyes. The shine off of that hat is bad.
Like, it wouldn't surprise me that humans at a point not in the too distant future will accept as a preferable option the option of just plugging into something and living in a virtual world that they can have cheat codes to, and that they could.
Oh, sure, yeah. Like, the virtual world is so accommodating. I mean. Yeah.
And I say the movies came out so that it's like we're dipping our toes in the water and you're not just like diving in. It's this shock. It's like, it feels so nice and comfortable and familiar.
You see, that's the thing, man. If you were Star Trek The Next Generation,
we went way off on the deep end.
If you were, then you would know this is a TNG episode. Actually, two of them. Two of them. I'm mixing Star Trek The Next Generation episodes here, but there's one where everybody on the Enterprise starts playing a game, and then eventually the aliens show up and take over the ship, and a few people resisted playing the game, and then they fight back, and then they take the ship back. And there's another one where it's called, like, Parasite or something, where, like, everybody's got these little, like, parasites, and they shoot the people, and then the parasite crawls out, and it's got a really gross ending. But that's kind of, you know... I like those two episodes when I think about modern politics.
Right. Yeah, and it's
wonderful.
Unfortunate that I mean, so because we do have to wrap up in a little bit. I want to kind of circle back to where I kind of want to get your input in terms of the local government process here in Miami. I'm going to speak personally from my experience in the last, let's call it 6 months to 8 months. As you know, like, and I'm assuming the majority of the people listening, so I have a space that I've run in Little Haiti since 2011. That space happened. I'm lucky to be in a position where my mom is my landlord. The warehouse has been in our family for since the 80s or the 90s, and I was basically helping her out to to take over for a horrible tenant at a certain point.
Sure.
And I'm trying to build something. I'm not really making any money off of it. Like, my goal is to not lose money. I need to start making money.
That's a great goal. And I start not losing money.
Switched careers
today.
But to be in that position and then see in the matter of 6 months to a year, and not even really a year, how all of this stuff with Magic City has kind of come out of nowhere. And yes and no, because Tony Cho.
Oh, it hasn't come out of nowhere.
Exactly.
It's been going on actually for a long time.
Tony Cho came by and offered, my neighbor who's a mechanic, offered him, $500K or something along those lines for his property 5-6 years ago. And it's because he knew there was a plan. It wasn't like, maybe I'm interested in this today, or
I've known Tony actually since my early mortgage days, when he was still a real estate agent over at Majestic Properties, and he's very sharp. Anything he's into, you can follow what Tony is doing, and people do that now.
Right.
They just follow what Tony's doing. They figure, that's where the money is.
He has made a name for himself.
Yeah. So now he's probably got to hide it, but
well,
he's very aggressive.
I think he banks on that. I think that's how he makes his money.
Well, you see, that's how real estate works. It's a combination of the two things.
It's the new stockbroker, really. At the end of the day, this
the
stock is really don't tell anyone, but it's looking really good. You might want to start investing.
Well, you know what? That brings up a good point, and that leads to something I wanted to talk about, which is affordable housing in Miami.
And let's define that, because these
does that exist?
Talk about affordable housing.
Does that exist? Not really.
Right.
It's very rare. The city of Miami is basically being gutted at this point. The neighborhood I live in. We live in, they're knocking down anything that's inexpensive rent, 2-story buildings, they're clear cutting it. Unfortunately we have an absent commissioner. He doesn't really go north of downtown for the DDA meetings, I guess. Maybe he hops over to the Omni CRA once in a while.
Can I jump in with this? I heard that the DDA was trying actually to absorb Edgewater into their kingdom, whatever.
They're a bunch
and that they couldn't, because Edgewater was actually outperforming downtown in growth, and the only way that they would have been able to do it is to say, we're doing it for their benefit, to give them resources or whatever, and they can't do that because
the city of Miami's mixed governance structure is a mess. All of the agencies are flailing. They're administrative heavy. They are action poor. Some of them work, some of them don't. Some of them are wasting a ton of money. But the Commissioner Russell, is actually trying to do something outrageously bad. Bad policy, a bad idea. He's pandering to a very small voting bloc. And he's ignoring our neighborhood in the process. Over in Edgewater, they've destroyed hundreds of affordable housing units just in the last month or two. And a lot of friends of mine have had to move out of the neighborhood because they can't afford to live in a $1,600 one-bedroom.
Right.
And, the places that are the $1,200 ones or $1,000 or $1,300, it's a difference between living somewhere and not.
Right.
But on top of that, they want to extend the Omni CRA, which is intended to cure slum and blight.
The term of it.
They want to extend, not just the term of it, which it needs to sunset and go away,
right.
But they want to extend the area of it into the West Grove. The whole point of the CRA was to bring governance closer to the people. And now you're going to say, hey, West Grove, you're blighted. You're a slum.
Right.
That's going to really spur people to invest into the area.
Right.
It's just a cheap trick to move money to where they want it to go.
Right.
And it's supposed to be it's a quick fix by Commissioner Russell, and it'll last in City of Miami government forever if he does it. And I oppose it strongly. It's a travesty. It's one of Commissioner Russell's many horrible ideas that luckily he doesn't have as many ideas as Commissioner Sarnoff. Otherwise, we'd be in really deep trouble.
Well, so here's the thing.
But it's one of his worst ideas, and he's determined to plow through with it. And just 3 blocks north of where that CRA is, all of the affordable housing disappeared. And he doesn't care because it's not at West Grove near his house.
Right.
It doesn't have a niche voting community.
I would argue that from what I know of Sarnoff, that was kind of his game also, is just maybe he lived closer to that. So
that's right. It's the typical situation for people that live north of downtown. We're ignored. We're not wanted. I'm sure Commissioner Russell goes to Bay Point occasionally.
Right.
But he's making decisions that affect all of us, and he's just not, somebody that you can trust. He's an AstroTurf progressive. What more can you say to that? Well, he does like to go to Ted Cruz fundraisers, whoop-de-doo.
Right.
Brilliant guy. Amazing.
So let's, unfortunately, I always say an hour is too short, but, let's just kind of try to tie things, and we kind of went all over the place, so now
okay,
it's
where's the
spread
string?
on the table, but so one of the ways that we can make headway and try to make a difference and to try and make things better in the community to counteract the negative impacts of what these developers, these politicians, like
more beer.
People, well, that always helps.
Okay,
but,
just checking. Just
checking. Like you said, it's sharing of information, and I think it's true. Is that if you throw it in their face where they can't avoid it, and you're like, this is how this is affecting your life directly, I think that they'll show up and they'll make a fuss, and like they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And
that's
so
true.
I think that what we're doing here, what you're doing with Only Miami, which that's what I want to get to, is what's next, for Grant on the airwaves, because I think it's important to have people like you. I mean, I'm a little bit more laissez-faire with the hard hitting, like I'm just like, all right, so what's up today, bro? Like,
sure, man.
But I do think that's important to have, every end of that spectrum, and people like you who do kind of at least try to package these complex concepts into a form that someone like me or someone
anybody can absorb. Anybody. So the next step is definitely the first podcast is recorded. I'm going to put it together this week and blast it out. Website is kind of loaded but not designed yet, but that'll happen pretty quickly. I'm looking into perhaps doing either there's an FM station that I'd like to get onto. I'm hoping to see what I could do with Sirius. I could be putting up a Only Miami radio station pretty soon, because there's I've been talking with some people about some space and blah blah blah. You can always follow me on Twitter at Grant Stern, Facebook.com/Grant Stern, which is actually my personal account. It's kind of annoying that I have like 40,000 people following my actual personal account. But, it's public. You can see all my stories there. It's an easy place to find it. TheSternFacts.com. That's another place you can read my work, or on Medium at Grant Stern. And I started producing an 880 program on Wednesday nights, 5 to 6 p.m. It's called Jacobs versus Goliath. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bruce Jacobs, but he's a local Democrat, activist, lawyer, mortgage foreclosure lawyer, and he's 5 to 6 every Wednesday night on 880 The Biz. Same station I was on. Yeah. So
that's AM, I mean, right?
Yeah, that's AM. And then we'll see. Once you start putting the content out there and doing stuff, like people come up to you with offers. I mean, I'm hoping,
really?
One of them comes through.
Where's the offers?
Well, once you go up past show 200, people pretty much,
it's still we're inching away.
Yeah, we made it 58 months. Which is pretty good for an over-there radio broadcast that's a weekly news talk show, where it's news magazine format. You're doing news, politics, culture, sports, entertainment, and we had a great run. I'm very, very pleased to have been on 880 for all those months, for all those years, almost 5, and it was a fantastic experience. I mean, I got to meet people I never would have otherwise met. Everything from Lawrence O'Donnell to Senator Graham to Inner Circle, the Reggae Act, to bringing my friends on there like the Billy Corbins and the Afro Betas and the Paulos and the Swenerlos, and it was a phenomenal platform, and the next one is going to be even better.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. Again, as always, we are Yo Miami. I'm Yuval Ophir. We're on Jolt Radio. Yo-Miami.com. It's Yo Miami on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow Grant on Twitter. We don't really do anything interesting on Twitter. And just Yo Miami on Facebook. And come visit us in Little Haiti at Yo Space. We have our monthly one-night stand comedy show this Sunday, 8:30 to 11 p.m. It's a fun comedy show based on the dating game.
Come get a one-night stand?
Well, you could try, but we don't guarantee anything.
Okay.
All right. Stream on, and